The Ouija board incident. "You really shouldn't be here," the old woman said, her voice a raspy whisper, as her glassy eyes fixed on the trio in her antique shop. "That board isn't a game. Casey, relax, it's just for fun." Casey, the ringleader of the group, smirked and shrugged, plucking the worn, dust-covered Ouija board from the shelf. It smelled faintly of mildew, and the faded letters carved into the wooden board looked older than the shop itself. "Old woman, fun." The old woman muttered under her breath, shaking her head as Casey, Nate, and Olivia left with their prize. The shop bell jingled behind them, the sound oddly discordant, like a broken melody. By the time the group reached Casey's dimly lit apartment, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. The place smelled faintly of incense and old books, an ambiance Casey liked to call witchy chic. She spread the board across her coffee table, lit a few candles and turned off the lights. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows on the walls, making Olivia shiver. "Olivia, are we really doing this? I mean, what if it actually works?" "Casey, it's just a stupid board. Besides, it'll be fun. You said you wanted something spooky for Halloween." "Nate, don't worry, Liv, it's all just a bunch of nonsense." Casey placed the planchette in the center of the board and motioned for the others to join her. Reluctantly, Olivia and Nate placed their fingers on the smooth wooden piece. The room fell silent, save for the occasional pop of the candle flames. "Casey, spirits of the beyond, we call upon you. Are you here with us?" For a moment nothing happened. Olivia glanced nervously at Nate, who smirked and wiggled his eyebrows. But then, ever so slightly, the planchette began to move. Olivia gasped, pulling her hand away. "Casey, don't do that! You're breaking the connection! Olivia, I wasn't pushing it, were you? Nate, it's probably just Casey." "Casey, it wasn't me. Let's ask another question." She placed her fingers back on the planchette, and after a moment of hesitation, so did Nate and Olivia. The air in the room felt heavier now, as if the walls were closing in. The candles flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to writhe like living things. "Casey, what is your name?" The planchette jerked to life, moving with a speed and precision that made all three of them freeze. It slid to the letter M, then A, then R, stopping briefly before moving to K. "Casey." "Mark. Okay, Mark, what do you want?" The board remained still for a long moment. Then with a sudden violent motion the planchette began to spell out a single word. Liver. "Nate. Liver? What the hell does that mean?" Before anyone could answer, a loud bang echoed through the apartment. Olivia screamed, clutching Nate's arm as the candles blew out simultaneously, plunging the room into darkness. "Olivia! Casey! Turn on the lights!" Casey scrambled for her phone, its flashlight illuminating the room in stark cold light. But the moment the light flickered on, they wished it hadn't. The Ouija board was no longer on the coffee table. It now sat upright on the floor, its letters glowing faintly in the dark as if etched with burning embers. The planchette moved on its own now, slowly spelling out another word. D-E-A-T-H, Nate. "Okay, this isn't funny anymore. We're done. Casey, it's not me, I swear. Olivia, we need to leave. Right now." But as they turned to flee, the apartment door slammed shut with a deafening force as if struck by an invisible hand. The temperature in the room plummeted, their breath visible in the icy air. A low, guttural growl emanated from somewhere in the shadows, sending chills down their spines. "Casey, who's there?" The growl grew louder, morphing into a distorted, inhuman voice. Distorted voice. "You invited me." The candles flared back to life, their flames unnaturally tall and blue. And standing in the corner of the room, barely illuminated by the eerie light, was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, its eyes hollow pits that seemed to suck in the light. Its twisted grin revealed jagged, yellow teeth. "Olivia, leave us alone!" But the figure only laughed, a sound that echoed like nails scraping against glass. Casey, shaking, grabbed the Ouija board and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a loud crack, splitting in two. For a moment, everything went silent. The candles extinguished again, plunging the room into darkness. Then one by one, the lights in the apartment flickered back on. The figure was gone, and the board lay in pieces on the floor. The trio stood frozen, their breaths ragged, too terrified to speak. Without a word, Nate grabbed Olivia's hand and pulled her toward the door. Casey followed, pausing only to glance back at the shattered board. But as she turned to leave, she saw it. The pieces of the board were rearranging themselves, sliding across the floor as if guided by invisible hands. The planchette sat in the center, pointing directly at her. "Casey, run!" Casey screamed, bolting out the door and slamming it shut behind her. They didn't stop running until they were several blocks away, their hearts pounding in their chests. None of them ever spoke about what happened that night. Casey moved out of her apartment the next day, leaving everything behind, but sometimes late at night she swore she could still hear the faint whisper of the board calling her name, and she knew, deep down, that she had left something behind, or maybe it had left something with her.